In this video, we'll show you how to activate or inactivate addressee labels, speaker labels, and corresponding words. We'll be using this stack of 3 dots called visual filters. Left-click on it, and when you do, there will be an extensive drop-down. It may be that by default you will find your program has activated the addressee labels. Incidentally, to get to that, you do need to click next to Resource. Addressee labels and speaker labels I find are sometimes by default activated. These refer to the little interpretive symbols. There's a megaphone, and then there's a person, a little icon of a person. These have been inserted into the text ahead of statements. Personally, I don't find these useful. They kind of clutter up the text. So I like to unclick the addressee labels, and now you'll see that the little icon of the person disappears. Unclick speaker labels, and then the megaphone disappears. If you were to leave them on and hover over them, then the Logos software would propose who they think is doing the talking. And now notice the heading that says corresponding words. This is an expandable heading. It's possible that yours is collapsed. If so, you'll want to expand it by clicking on the little triangle to the left of the box, and then click on the box. Now you have your option of what words you would like to show up, similarities linked together in the text. There are various ways that you can instruct Logos to display for you by highlighting words that are related. So let's walk through them and see what happens in this text. I have John 18 pulled up. First, let's begin by clicking on Same Root, only that piece. To get out of here, just click outside that drop down. And I've found that this word exalethen is a good one for an example. What was it that we had clicked down? Let's check again. It was same root. Same root. Alright, with same root, exalethen, and I'm clicking now on one word, exalethen, and then notice the other words that have automatically been highlighted in blue. Exalethen, by clicking same root, has also ignited, we might say, or highlighted ace-alethen. Now you know those are different words. Ex-alethen, to go out of, from ex-erchomai, and ace-alethen, he went into from ace-erchomai. But I'm sure by now you're recognizing the similarities. Both of them are built on the basic root, key concept, basic root of erchomai, and then they're prefixed by one or another of the prepositions, either ex or ace, out of or into. So this is what Logos means when it says we will signify or we will highlight words of a similar root. We see that erketai, which is erchomai with no prepositional prefix, this has also been supplied to us or brought to our attention. I wonder if you see in verse 6, there's yet a new one that we haven't talked about yet. Do you notice it? In verse 6, let's move the cursor towards it. Up-aelthon, which would be up erchomai. Again, erchomai, but with the apo preposition. So once again, in Logos definition, root means a basic component word, the fundamental piece of any given word. And if we're asking Logos to show for us or collect anything with that root, you can see it will encompass any word which is derived from it, including words that have varied prepositions prefixed to it. Alright, let's go back and change our choice. No longer same root, but let's go with same lemma, and let's find out what logos means by same lemma. Let's click on our same word that we chose before, exalthen. And now only words which derive from that precise combination of the preposition ex or ek and erchomai. There's one more in the portion that's displayed for us. It's down in verse 4. You see it highlighted. But no longer is eis erchomai or ap erchomai. No longer are these highlighted. If we were to click on eis ealthen, let's see if that shows up. Sometimes, depending on how fast your computer is, I find my computer needs to think a little bit. It looks like there was just one occurrence of that. How about just erchomai? Here's a finite form of erchomai, and we can see that that's in verse 3, and again in verse 4, erchomai occurs. So once again, lemma means the full, complete form that you're asking for. It will bring it up as with any derived form that uses all parts of it, preposition plus basic root, if that should be the component. You might think of root as a little deeper and lemma as a little more to the surface if you're thinking of a vertical kind of hierarchy. All right, that's lemma. Let's uncheck that and see what surface text will do for us. Let's click on exalthen, surface text. Once again, it has illuminated the same word in verse 4. What's going on with the command called same surface text is that logos will highlight other occurrences of the precise word, the exact spelling, the same person and number, the same, in the case of a verb, the same voice, so all the details. We can illustrate that with a different word within this particular selection. Notice what happens when we park on erkatai. Again, the current command, let's drop it down. The current command, we're asking for the same surface text. The same surface text then says the exact letter for letter spelling, no more, no less. If it occurs elsewhere in the field that's displayed to us, the portion of verses, then that would be highlighted. You can see that erkatai occurs only once in the portion that's on the screen here. Notice what happens when we switch to same lemma, however, with that same word. As soon as we switch to lemma, it's saying, well, all right, you're interested both in participles as well as finite forms. And if there was an infinitive from the same verb, erchomai, then that would show up. So you see that we have a finite form in verse 3 and also a participle, erchomena, both from erchomai. This is in result of our asking for the same lemma. But if we, once again, same surface text, and click on erkatai, no longer does the erchomena over here show up because it is not the same surface text. That is, again, if you're thinking of a hierarchy, root is very low down. Root, the command for the same root would collect words that have the same most important part, that would be erchomai, but also prepositions affixed to the front of it, varied prepositions. If we ask for lemma, then it's got to be the same preposition plus main verb, erchomai, in the case that the word we're talking about happens to be comprised of a preposition and a main verb. Not all words are that way. But as we move up the hierarchy, and now we're looking at same surface text, then it's got to be the very precise form of that preposition plus verb, or in this case, erchomai, erkatai is the verb only, has no preposition. And so that's all that it will look for. There's one last feature that you'll be interested in knowing about. We will now uncheck the same surface text and instead check same word. Same word. Notice what happens when we now click on a word. Let's click, for example, on the word, the name Jesus. All right, that has become highlighted, but it does not trigger any other highlighting within the Greek text, within the same document, even though, notice here verse 4, Jesus, same spelling, is there. Let's see, I think it may be somewhere else, but at least you see it should have fired up both of those if same word was intended to show us within this text. So it's got something else that it's doing. What it's doing is inviting us to connect separate documents. So let's slide over. I happen to have ESV on the right. We're going to go to the triple dots, the visual filters, and here let's turn on same word in this document as well and watch what happens. I'm going to go back to my launch document, the Greek, and again click on the word Jesus. Only the word I chose, the single occurrence of it, is all that's illuminated or highlighted in the Greek, but notice what happened over in the ESV. It's using a green highlighting that matches my launch point, chapter 18, verse 1, but it's also showing me where else in the parallel document that same word occurs. It occurs in verse 2, verse 4, verse 5, and so forth, here using kind of a light blue shading. Let's see what happens when we do a verb instead of a noun or proper noun. Let's do exhalthen, to go out of. This, it understands that as well, and now it's picked up 3 words, he went out, as tracing to exhalthen. That's accurate, isn't it? He went out. And then we see that at the end of verse 1 in English, we have light blue on the word entered. Well, entered is actually eisaleuthen. So evidently what's going on is it's tracking with the erkomai, the underlying root. Just for fun, let's see what happens in Greek when we choose eisaleuthen. We clicked that and it says, well, the main word that you're launching from is entered, but there are some related words. So these are words that we might examine and see how closely they are related. I'm curious, for example, about verse 6, to draw back. I wonder which word that was. Then they drew back and fell to the ground. Looking at the Greek, that would be this apelthon. So indeed, it is telling me the same word command, same word visual filter, that is pointing me first to the identical word in translation and then to words that have the same root. The same root, that is, some component of the word is similar. So that aperkomai, apelthon here, we'll click on that. That is also offered when I clicked on eisaleuthen, probably exhalthen as well. Yeah, drew back continues to be ignited or highlighted. So you have learned in this brief video how to deselect addressee labels. If you find that these are cluttering, you've learned how to deselect the speaker labels. If you find these cluttering your text, you've also learned how to turn on corresponding words and then use this for a couple of features. You can find whether or not the same root, and that could be a compound with other components, the same root shows up within the Greek text. This is helpful when a writer is recycling a certain root and it has a compounding effect. That recycling doesn't always show up in the translation, but we want to be aware of that in the Greek. A little higher order, the same lemma, we've seen how to do that. like ACE Erkomai and X Erkomai, those would be all fired or ignited if we asked lemma. Same surface text would be the specific form of a word. If it's a participle, then only the participial form of ACE Erkomai or AP Erkomai would show up, not infinitive plus finite plus participle, as lemma would do. And we've seen how same word can link from one document to another one, which is handy, but you want to remember to turn that feature on in both documents that you want to examine. That illumination didn't happen in the New American Standard. Let's take a look and see. Sure enough, it wasn't turned on. If I were to turn on that, we've got lots of check marks here, then clicking on a word in one resource should make it, should ignite it in another. And a double click there woke it up, and you see the proper noun Jesus does show up. You may have noticed that it's possible to have more than one of these turned on at the time. You can have more than one clicked, selected, depending on what you want to have appear before you. It's possible to have this operate with just a mouse hover. I find that just a little bit distracting. If I just hover on a word, it tends to give me a little more visual stimulus than I always want. Here I'm not even clicking, so I prefer personally to have it activated on a click rather than the hover. But you choose what works best for you. Hope you found this helpful.